Hello and welcome. That was a bit loud, wasn't it? Guys, thanks for joining us for this final session of the day. I think it's the final session here today. So you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to keep you here for too long. And secondly, you'll be pleased to know, hopefully, we're going to talk about something that's quite interesting in the world of security. So my name is Rich Vibert. I'm co-founder and CEO of Matomic. And today we're going to talk about insider threat, modern strategies for preventing data leaks, and we're going to talk particularly about preventing data leaks in SaaS applications. There's a growing problem in insider threat. The first one is 95% of all data breaches recognize human error as the problem. And this is the problem when it comes to places like SaaS, where you've got humans that are using these tools day in, day out. This is where the risk is coming from. It's not from all the traditional things like the perimeter and so on. The second one is the average cost of a data breach from an insider threat is 15 million. So it's definitely not a cheap problem to have. And this is why a lot of companies are investing in modern tools to protect against this new type of problem that we're seeing. Finally, 85% of cybersecurity leaders expect data loss from insider threat to increase in the next 12 months. So it's becoming a major concern for security leaders when they're seeing all of these employees, external, internal, using these applications and sensitive data in new and modern ways, and the risk that these types of applications bring to their organization. Now, I started Matomic 7 years ago, and when I used to talk, I used to ask the question, does anyone in the audience use any of these applications? Over the last 7 years, I've actually turned that into, does anyone here not use SaaS applications inside their organization? And no one raises their hand. This is because this is the modern cloud. Cloud isn't just about databases. It isn't just about AWS, GCP. We're seeing modern companies use SaaS for not just chat, not just document storage, but almost all use cases inside the organization. An average organization is using between 100 and 200 different SaaS applications. So this is where work is happening. This is where sensitive data is being uploaded. It's where it's being shared. It's where the heart of the organization really is. So what's the problem for security when it comes to SaaS applications? These applications are made to make us work quicker. They want us to share stuff. They want us to upload data, share it with our colleagues, share it externally, download the data, put it in new places, connect these tools between each other. The SaaS applications are becoming increasingly rich with productivity benefits that, as a byproduct, has major security concerns for data being able to leak outside the organization incredibly easily. So what do we mean when we're talking about insider threat inside SaaS applications? The first thing that I always think about, and our customers often talk about at Matomic, is it's both malicious and non-malicious. But actually, increasingly, the insider threat is the non-malicious. So it's accidental behavior. It's someone trying to share a Google Drive file externally and them accidentally putting in the wrong email address. It's them downloading files and then accidentally not deleting those files afterwards, or accidentally uploading data to the wrong place at the wrong time. So a big part of insider threat when it comes to SaaS is the accidental non-malicious behavior. But then you've also got this malicious behavior. You've got a salesperson that's handed in their notice period and they're downloading all the CRM data from Salesforce. You've got someone that's trying to take some IP documents from OneDrive just before they're leaving. So insider threat is both a combination of the malicious activity, but also the non-malicious activity. Try accidentally doing something just to do your job. It's a natural byproduct that you make these mistakes in the process. So how do you think about solving these problems at the same time? Because they are very different problems. So how can businesses, or how are businesses, let's put it that way, protecting sensitive data in this modern world? And most importantly, which isn't written here, but is why we started Matomic and why we exist today, is how do you prevent insider risk without getting in the way of productivity? We can all go to these tools and turn off external sharing or put in some really basic DLP controls that don't let sensitive data being in these applications in the first place. So really the question is, how do modern businesses prevent insider threat without getting in the way of productivity? It all starts with square one, which is probably the hardest square, which is finding sensitive data in the first place. Unlike a database where it's more just like maybe a table of sensitive data that's organized, even if it's structured or unstructured, finding sensitive data is going to be a little bit easier. How do you find sensitive data in applications like Teams, where it's got 5 years worth of chat communications in private channels and public channels and external channels? So the biggest problem in actually preventing inside a threat is square one, which is finding the sensitive data in the first place. And that isn't just about a catalog of here's where all my PCI data is, here's where all my PII data is, here's where my confidential data is. It's actually more about not only where data is, who has access to that data. Is that data still needed? Do we still need passport photos that was uploaded to Google Drive 5 years ago? So it's not just about the where, it's also the who, the what, the how, and all of those at the same time. So it all starts with discovery, and a lot of businesses are still stuck at this problem here. This is really the fundamental blocker to preventing an insider risk in the first place. The second stage is classification. So once you can find the data, once you can find who has access to it, when it was uploaded, you need to categorize this. You need to label it, you need to understand it, you need to basically lay it all out and understand what's going on inside an organization, and you do this via classification. Now, classification exists in your more traditional security sense, so you've got the highly confidential, and so on. But what we're seeing from some of our most innovative customers is infinite dimensional classification. So this file might have PII in it. It also might be highly confidential, but the PII might be internal PII. So maybe it's employee details, maybe it's customer PII, maybe it's existing customer PII. So there's many different ways that you can classify data. And again, it all comes back down to finding the sensitive data, where it is, who has access, and then putting this classification in place. And this is real time. It's not doing it all just one time and then it's done. This is real-time discovery and classification. Being able to answer questions like, where is all my PCI data across SaaS? Not many companies can do that today, but new companies that are thinking about this in a modern way, they're being able to answer these questions. So once you have the discovery and you've got the classification, you can find the sensitive data, where is it, who has access to it. The final part is control. In the world of SaaS and the world and how DLP and data security is interacting with the world of SaaS, I'll tell you one thing that doesn't work, and that's alerts. If you start applying alerts to things like tell me when someone shares credit card information inside Slack, you're going to have 1 million alerts within the first month. So the world of alerting does not work when it comes to insider threat and SaaS applications. So what do I mean by control? I mean things like redacting, blocking the sensitive data, putting retention periods on the sensitive data, changing who can have access levels such that if I upload a file to Google Drive and I try and toggle that file to be public, knocking it back from public and making it only internal, or maybe only letting it be shared with 5 people and not 6 people. So very granular controls over who can do what inside SaaS. And this isn't just alerts for the security teams. This is happening in real time, and it's all automated as well. But the biggest movement that we're seeing in the way that companies are controlling sensitive data in SaaS is via the employees themselves. It's important to understand the reason for this. It's kind of contradictory to say this, but it's almost impossible to automate all of these risks because you don't know what's risky and what's not. Finding the risks that matter is an incredibly challenging thing to do when it comes to looking at how sensitive data is being shared in these rich and complicated environments. So what we're seeing is this trend towards actually enabling the employees themselves to control their own risks. So an example might be you upload something into OneDrive, it looks like it might be risky, it might contain sensitive data, might be shared in the wrong folder, enabling that employee via real-time notifications to change the access levels, to change the data points themselves, enabling the employees to do it. So we call this the human-centric approach. For the employees, it's giving them the controls. For the security, compliance, and privacy teams, it's the visibility over, is my organization getting better at sharing sensitive data? Not are they not sharing sensitive data, because that's their job, they need to do that. Are they getting better at doing that? Are they doing it in a safer way to the way they were doing it yesterday? So this is really, when we say the modern approach of security, we really believe in this more human-centric approach, and we're seeing incredible use cases of the ways that modern companies are doing this. So let me give you an example, because I've talked a lot about SaaS and I've talked a lot about controls and discovery, but let's just get a real life example. So one of the big things that we're talking about is, we talked about malicious and non-malicious. Let's look at a more malicious example. A sales leader on their notice period. It's a classic example. I've had this before in my own organization. So a sales leader goes in their notice period. You have this data from SaaS applications. It might be uploaded into Google Groups. It might be in places like Okta, but these are already brought into your SaaS environments, this understanding in real time that someone's in the notice period. When someone goes in the notice period, stuff's starting to happen. You're starting to look more closely at the activities that they've got going on in applications like Salesforce or Google Drive. So you then see this person on their notice period. Maybe sharing files externally is fine. You're allowed to share files externally, but you're going to take closer note if someone's doing that and they're on the notice period. So this sales leaders, they're on the notice period, they go into Google Drive and they start sharing files with what looks like their name at gmail.com. So it looks like it's being shared with a private email address. Obviously it's suspicious. So at this point in time, you're doing the alert in terms of giving the visibility to the security team to say something abnormal is going on. But at the same time, you're also taking action or giving the ability for the security teams to take action within that thing. So immediately they can close down these risks. So you've alerted the security team to something abnormal is going on, but you're not relying on the security team to take action there and then. Matomic or other tools like this are doing the action for you. So they're preventing the file sharing. They're removing that external share and they're making it a private file again. At the same time, the security team has got the alert. They know that something suspicious is going on and they have the visibility into it. So immediate action at the same time as the visibility being provided. The output of this is the file hasn't been shared externally. It's been closed down immediately. That spreadsheet, that CSV, whatever it is of sensitive data, that file is kept private. It hasn't been shared. And it doesn't mean that this sales leader, because they might have not been malicious, they can then still go and share this file afterwards, but it's been caught, there's been a net to make sure that the risk hasn't occurred before it's too late. That's just one example of many. There are so many examples we're seeing, whether it's companies trying to protect different departments doing different things, people on their notice period is the example I just shared, or just holistically across their organization, or geographically. Some countries can do certain things with certain sensitive data, some countries can't. So again, it's all of this infinite controls and visibility over sensitive data and giving the automated policies to prevent the risk in the first place. What are these automated policies? So with applications like Matomic, we have a bunch of pre-built policies that we're seeing working tremendously well. What do I mean by they're working well? Firstly, and most importantly, they're preventing these risks happening in the first place. So they're incredibly good at capturing the risks that matter. But most importantly is they're not getting in the way of the employees. This is the most important thing. When we look at Matomic and we think of the success of using modern DLP and SaaS, one of the most important things is employees shouldn't be going to security teams and saying, hey, you blocked me from doing this. I'm just trying to do part of my job. A really big part of this is not getting in the way of employees, preventing those risks without getting in the way of productivity. So a whole bunch of policies that are pre-built. Some of the examples might be things that we've talked about today. Revoking external sharing after a certain period of time, redacting messages that contain certain types of sensitive data, or just redacting sensitive data that's so risky in the first place, you don't want it to be shared anyway. With tools like Matomic, these policies come off the shelf. We know that these ones are working really well, but it's also giving the ability to fine-tune these to the organization. Because as I said before, every company's got a different approach, and that's fine. Some of them are willing to take more risks. Some of them want to be more risk averse, and they don't want to take any risk, whether it be their industry or their size or just their attitude to sharing sensitive data. So just to summarize, I said I wasn't going to keep you too long because I know it's the final talk of the day. So just to summarize, the 3 steps to protecting against insider threat in SaaS environments without impairing productivity. Number 1, it's the discovery. What data do we have? Who has access to it? When was it uploaded? Where is it being stored now? Where it's being transferred to? That is an incredibly rich piece of work that's hard to do, but it's the most important piece. Number 2 is classification. We can't just rely on solving this problem by having a million rows to show us where all of the sensitive data is, each individual data point. We need to understand holistically where it's being stored, what type of data is it, who does it belong to, is it confidential, is it not confidential? So that classification piece is also incredibly important. And finally, it's about the control. As I said before, alerts by themselves aren't going to do this. So we need a way to automate these policies. Automate these policies that we've asked employees to sign on the day they joined, say, make sure you don't do this and make sure you do this. But automating these policies in real time to prevent these risks before they become a problem for the organization. Cool, so I hope you found that useful. We're Matomic, so this is what we do. I'm not going to ask for questions here. Instead, if you want to ask any questions, we've got our booth just outside on the left. We've got a great team there. We can show you more about the product. We can answer any questions. So we'd love to hear more from you. Thanks for your time.